Our next speaker, Scott Heiferman, is a dear friend of PdF. He's been on this stage before a couple of times. The founder of Meetup.com, probably one of the most important change agents, if you will, of taking technology and making something very basic a lot easier to do, which is to get together around common interests. And Scott is going to talk to us both about some exciting new developments at Meetup and much more larger, the power of we.
Hey, yo, Mike. Bah! Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. We're about to hit lunch. Let's put down the screens and the laptops and the phones for just a minute. Let's really get into this. Let's get into answering Mika's call at the beginning for how all this stuff is going to really make a difference in not just drowning us in information around things like the oil spill, but as Mika wrote the other day, he threw out this notion that we shouldn't just be thinking of RSS, but RSSA is his term. RSSA standing for Real, Simple, Syndicated Action, and that's what I want to get into and really get into with here now. So I saw one of the most amazing things I've seen last week. Since I showed up at a Dean meetup eons ago, to give a little glimpse into the future. I think I've seen the future, and this is it. The Huffington Post used a brand new tool that Meetup launched last week to do something very interesting. They decided they were going to tell their audience to meet up. And this new tool that we have that I'll show you in a few minutes makes it radically simple, makes it insanely easy to launch meetups everywhere about something. So with one little link saying nationwide meetups planned, this journalism, this news sparked in the past few days 231 local meetups planned. Local gatherings, of course in places like New York and Los Angeles and Tampa, because they care about it in Florida, and Atlanta and San Francisco and Seattle. But what's so amazing about it is that places like Mishawaka, Indiana, have 3 people that are going to gather. And let me just say, 3 people gathering, just having coffee together at that cafe, they may not do a damn thing of making a difference with the oil spill, but the fact that they have an outlet, the fact that there's a possibility that they will be able to share their story at this thing, and that it was sparked by a post, is so fascinating. From Iowa City to Vero Beach to Mobile, Alabama, it's happening all with one post. So let me backtrack and say how we came to this new thing. We at Meetup have been saying over and over and over that when you look at organizations' Facebook walls, this might look like one of your organization's Facebook walls, you always see people saying something like this. Aaron McGann in Chicago saying, I am in Chicago and trying to find other IC supporters to get involved with. Anybody from Chicago? There's no answer for Aaron. There's no answer for Aaron. She is interested. She's ready. She's ready to be engaged. And Aarons are everywhere. Aarons are everywhere for that organization, which is called Invisible Children, trying to address child soldiers in Uganda. But for every organization, these Aarons are everywhere, and there's no real outlet for them. They can click on something, they can do something, but Aaron represents the future and past of movements, and that is that movements are not a campaign or a trend or media or awareness or even action. A movement is when people self-identify. They call themselves an environmentalist. They call themselves a union member, a feminist, a evangelical. And so unless people engage at a level where they can share their story, Aaron's story, for her, imagine if Aaron was able to show up at that cafe on a Saturday because she's not doing anything else and tell her story of me. I'm stealing from Marshall Gans here, sort of a movement, one of the great leaders of movements theory. He says, people have to share their story of me, and then it turns into a story of we. Why is Aaron there? Why did Aaron write that post? Why does she care about this? There's something in it that will connect with other people, and when all those stories get shared, a story of we emerges, and then identity and the movement happens. The problem is that it's easier than ever now to get pseudo members and harder than ever to get real members of a movement. You see more and more now the standard set of what you can do if you are an organization or trying to create some sort of movement, even a brand or whatever. You're saying, watch us, see us, download us, join us, friend us, contact us, follow us. Enough about us. Like, it's a false sense of membership. It's an illusion of engagement. I mean, it's good to communicate to them, and it's good for them to communicate to you, but what about connecting them to each other? You've got followers. Now what? Fans and followers are not a movement. What good are followers if they're not mobilized? You need to get them to self-organize, give them permission to be incredible, because you want accidents and serendipity, don't tell your lawyers, luck, randomness, fate, and coincidences to happen, because then leaders emerge. And when leaders emerge, that's when the shit really happens. 21st century movements are about enabling followers, not just connecting them. So you want to lead your followers to lead, and fan your fans' flames. Watch what happens when they connect and share their stories with each other. What if you got your fans not just to like you, but to like each other? What if you got your followers to follow not just you, but each other? What would they do? So here's what happens when people meet up. Here's what happens when people meet up. We see a word emerge. And that emerge so often is this word let's. They meet up, they get together, and they say, let's build an open source car at this meetup in London. Let's develop something cool together at the London Java meetup. Let's help each other out at this business startup, this business support new chamber of commerce that's emerging. By the way, business meetups, small business meetups are happening by the thousands every week. Let's clean up the beach in Massachusetts. Let's talk MS in Pennsylvania. Let's jump out of a perfectly good airplane together at the skydiving meetup in Tampa. Let's hike and maybe take a break if we get tired in Mountain View, because in Silicon Valley they get tired. So when it turns to politics and advocacy, and what you'll see are words like this. Let's not just pass on the latest news article or video. Let's discuss action items and strategy. If you're just enabling people to pass content and pass media and visualize this and transparency and open that, they need to connect. This is what happens when people self-organize. Let's hear it for let's, okay? Let's hear it for let's. Let's is awesome. Let's is the heart of things moving forward in the world. That let's is what might happen when you connect with other people here, not with Newt Gingrich on the Skype, but when you talk to other people here today at the lunch, which you're hungry for in a minute. Would Erin say let's if she found the others? If that post had an answer on Facebook, and I think it probably would. Erin did not say, I'd like to do micro-action tasks and be a human cog. Erin did not say, I'd like to continue sitting on my ass soaking up the rays of this damn screen, or I'd like to be a part of a faceless crowdsourcing crowd, or I'd like to consume more media or make more media, or I'd like to be told exactly what to do. This guy knows how to do it. He goes on TV and he says, join a meetup. And as a result, there are not, this screen says 439. Actually, it's 560 or so now Tea Party meetups. This is the backbone of the Tea Party movement because people have said, go meet up. Now, it started, you all know sort of Meetup and Howard Dean, but around the same time as Howard Dean, there was this young guy named Barack Obama who decided he's going to run for U.S. Senate. And he's got these little kids. And he slaps on his homepage, you got to love the homepage, welcome to our website. He slaps on the homepage for his supporters to meet up, and he campaigns a lot by going from meetup to meetup. If they get a certain number of RSVPs, he'll go and show up at their meetup, and he did. Since then, Meetup, I run a company called Meetup. We've taken our eye off. We stepped away from sort of helping campaigns and organizations and movements and brands and companies or anything like that. We just focused on one thing, which is getting people to self-organize these really independent local meetups everywhere about everything, with this vision of what if there was a local meetup that was welcoming and friendly within miles and within days about whatever is important to you when you're diagnosed with something or when you find when anything's important to you. And so we've seen this growth. But we kept getting calls week in, week out, and day out by organizations saying, well, But we want to have meetups, and we say, well, that's not really what Meetup does anymore. So here's the answer, and I'm coming back to this idea that the Huffington Post could do one little blip of a post and launch 200 plus gatherings around the country. What if a tweet could launch 1,000 meetups? What if it were insanely easy to mobilize people? We took this blank sheet of paper and created something called Meetup Everywhere, which is a super sort of open light, stripped everything away and said, how do you give the kind of power that like my Barack Obama had to anyone who wants to spark meetups everywhere about something? And here's what happened. Last week, when we launched it, the first guy to use it is a guy named Seth Godin, who writes marketing books, is a very popular, fantastic writer. And he, at midnight, one day last week, posted on his blog that you should go form a meetup about him in your town and meet up with other readers. He's just an author. He's just some dude in Hastings-on-Hudson who says, form a meetup about, gather with other readers. Within 12 hours, in 499 cities, they organized. A week later, 764 cities. And what's fascinating is here's this guy sitting in upstate in New York up there, and he's got 3 people in Geneva, 3 people in Krakow, people in Slovenia and Romania and Greece and in Nairobi and in India and Japan. They're gonna have coffee and talk about his writings. How does that make the power of his writing stronger and better? I don't know how, but it will, I'm sure. Here they are in Nairobi, and they're saying they're organizing. So Meetup Everywhere, I won't go more into it. It takes 5 minutes to set up a Meetup Everywhere about anything. It's just a matter of declare there are meetups about something, get the word out about it, and it will work. There's a lot of magic to how it works, but I won't bore you with that right now. But speaking of magic, well, I'll come back to that in a second. So let me show you a couple other examples of how it was used in this past week. Etsy, great marketplace of handcrafted goods. They just said, go meet up to their people, 453 places from Romania. And by the way, notice how they're talking in this middle section. They're self-organizing. The big bet here is if you just give people these light tools, will it work? And it will work. In Romania, in Chile, and Perth. Now, here's a guy who's a VC in New York. His name is Fred Wilson. He posts on his blog that he wants his readers of his blog to meet up. And he puts the plugin that we just launched on the right there. Within these past few days, he has gatherings in 164 places. And this is real stuff from Foursquare meetups. I love this example. There's a guy named Howard Greenstein, who's a member of this community for a long time, who brought to the table last week that the New York Roadrunners, they hold the big marathon in New York in November. They've been told by their runners through the years that the runners want to meet up with each other before the marathon, where in their home cities. So they just blipped it out. They just tweeted, or whatever they did, that the runners should meet up in their home city, and it's happening in 126 of them. So in Vancouver and Beechwood, Ohio, and Orlando, there's at least 3 people that are getting together to run. In fact, here in this town in Brazil, they've planned that they're going to just go for a 10 to 20 mile long run on June 13th, and the guy at the bottom there just says, I'm in, and there's 3 people. Okay, so I can go on and on. The idea here is you want to be everywhere, but you can't be everywhere, so you need to crowdsource your everywhereness. This is bigger and more important than the iPad. Because people are more magical than the iPad, and because everyone's organized but the people. Everyone's organized but the people, and the most exciting thing in the future is not TV on your phone. It's billions of people using their phones to be powerful together in ways we can't imagine. So what I've learned from 6 million meetups and the 60 million RSVPs that have happened so far is that amazing stuff does happen, from the babysitting collectives and the resource sharing and all that stuff that goes down when amazing things happen after they meet up, and then they develop capacity, they develop organization. Clay Shirky is wrong that organizing without organizations is not the way of the future. It's organizing new kinds of organizations. What I learned in the past week was that you put these little fresh tools out there, there's enormously more unleashed potential for what happens when people meet up than we've barely seen yet. The next wave in social media isn't media. It's you've got this now power to be a publisher and a broadcaster, but don't stop there. just give that people that little spark that they can meet up with each other. De Tocqueville says, in democratic countries, the knowledge of how to combine is the mother of all forms of knowledge. I respond, in the 21st century, the technology for how to combine is the mother of all awesomeness. You need to use the internet to get off the internet, because 20th century depersonalization and super-industrialization and over-anonymization is getting wiped out by the fact that now people are turning to each other. That's what we're doing on Facebook. That's what we're doing on Twitter. And everything's being reinvented. So let me just end here. The great movement of the early 21st century has not happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. Get people to turn to each other. If people aren't meeting up, it's not a movement. Thanks.